Long ago, in a kingdom set far away in time and distance, there lived a king and queen who seemed to have everything a heart could desire. Their coffers were full. Their halls were warm with feasts and music. Their wardrobes glittered with fine clothes, and each day they rode out in a grand coach admired by all. Yet for all their riches and comfort, their hearts carried a deep and constant sorrow. They had no child. Years passed, and still the palace nursery stood empty. The queen, gentle and thoughtful, often wandered alone to ease her sadness. One day, while walking beside the river that flowed at the bottom of the garden, she noticed a small fish lying on the bank, its silver sides dull, its mouth opening and closing in desperate gasps. Moved by pity, the queen knelt, lifted the fragile creature, and carefully returned it to the cool water. Before swimming away, the fish lifted its head and spoke in a soft, clear voice. "I know the wish of your heart," it said. "Because you have shown me kindness, your wish shall be fulfilled. You will soon have a daughter." The queen returned to the palace with wonder in her heart, hardly daring to hope. Yet the fish's promise came true. Before long, she gave birth to a baby girl so beautiful that the king could scarcely look upon her without tears of joy. He declared that a feast would be held the like of which the kingdom had never known, so that all might celebrate the child's arrival. Invitations were sent far and wide, to nobles, neighbors, friends, and family. At the queen's request, the fairies of the land were also invited, for in those days, fairies still walked openly among humankind. There were 13 fairies in the kingdom, but the palace owned only 12 golden plates. Believing there was no other choice, the king and queen invited only 12. The feast was splendid beyond imagining. When it was finished, the 12 fairies gathered in a shining circle around the cradle. One by one, they bestowed their gifts: goodness, beauty, wisdom, grace, kindness, and every blessing that could brighten a human life. But just as the 11th fairy finished speaking, a terrible sound echoed through the palace halls. The great doors flew open, and into the hall strode the 13th fairy. She wore black from head to toe, black cap, black shoes, and carried not a wand but a broomstick. Her face was dark with anger, for she had not been invited to the feast. Without greeting or courtesy, she raised her voice and cried, "The king's daughter shall, in her 15th year, prick her finger on a spindle and fall down dead." A chill swept through the hall. The king and queen clutched each other in horror, and the guests stood frozen. But the 12th fairy, who had not yet given her gift, stepped forward quickly. "The spell cannot be undone," she said, "but it may be softened." She raised her wand and declared that the princess would not die, but would instead fall into a deep sleep lasting 100 years. Though comforted by this mercy, the king was determined to protect his child from any harm at all. He ordered that every spindle in the kingdom be gathered and burned, until not one remained. The princess grew into a young girl, and then into a maiden, more lovely and kind than words can tell. She was wise beyond her years and gentle in spirit, and all who met her loved her dearly. For many years it seemed the dark prophecy had been defeated. On the very day she turned 15, however, the king and queen were away from the palace. The princess, left to herself, wandered through rooms she had never explored. At last she came to an old tower and noticed a narrow staircase leading upward. At the top was a small door with a golden key. Curious, she turned the key and stepped inside. An old woman sat there spinning, the wheel humming softly as it turned. The princess watched in fascination. "How prettily that little thing spins," she said, reaching out. The moment her finger touched the spindle, she cried out and fell to the floor, still and silent. The spell had been fulfilled. The princess did not die, but sank into a sleep deeper than any before. At that same moment, the magic spread throughout the palace. The king and queen, who had just returned, fell asleep where they stood. Courtiers froze mid-step. Guards leaned on their spears and slept. In the stables, horses slept standing. Dogs curled and slept in the courtyard. Pigeons on the roof tucked their heads beneath their wings. Even the flies upon the walls ceased their buzzing and slept. In the kitchens, the fire dimmed and rested. The cook, hand raised to scold a boy, froze and slept. The spit stopped turning, the goose halted mid-roast, and the butler slept with ale at his lips. Time itself seemed to pause. Outside, a hedge of thorns began to grow around the palace. Each year it grew thicker and taller, until the palace vanished completely from sight. Only whispers remained, stories of a beautiful sleeping princess called Briar Rose. Princes came from many lands, trying to force their way through the thorns. But the hedge clutched them fast, and none ever returned. Years turned into decades. At last, after many years, a young prince heard the tale. An old man told him of the sleeping princess and the palace hidden behind thorns, and of the many princes who had perished trying to reach her. But the young prince was unafraid. "I will go and see Briar Rose," he said. The old man warned him, but the prince would not be turned aside. That very day, the 100 years came to an end. As the prince reached the thicket, the cruel thorns transformed into flowering shrubs. They parted easily before him and closed gently behind. He passed through the silent court, the sleeping animals and the frozen servants, amazed at the stillness. At last he reached the tower and found the princess lying asleep, more beautiful than any living soul. He bent down and kissed her. At once, Briar Rose opened her eyes and smiled. The spell broke everywhere at once. The king and queen awoke and wept with joy. The court stirred, animals leapt up, fires blazed, flies buzzed, and life rushed back into the palace as though no time had passed at all. Soon after, Briar Rose and the prince were married in a feast brighter than the one held at her birth. And they lived, as stories say, happily ever after.